Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Upholding the Whole Child Model in Times of Crisis webinar. This is the second of a two-part webinar series that we've hosted this week. Each were designed to give you a window into the DREAM community. My name is Felicia Crump, and I am the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at DREAM, and I will be your moderator for today. We have just about 75 people registered, and we cannot thank you enough for your time and participation. Before we start, we want to remind you that you can still submit your questions using the Q&A box at the bottom of this page. We have received so many great questions already, and we will do our best to answer as many as possible at the end of our time together. And to start, I'm going to turn things over to Eve Colavito, Chief Education Officer. Eve has been with DREAM for 10 plus years and is really the person that makes all of our wildest dreams about what is possible for our scholars a reality.
Thanks for that warm introduction, Felicia. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm excited to share a little bit about this place that is so close to my heart. As Felicia said, I've worked at DREAM for almost 11 years now. And I feel deeply that we're not only doing right by children and families at DREAM, but we are also a part of the larger solution to inequity in the communities and the city that we live in. DREAM has come a long way from our early years on a scrappy baseball field on East 100th Street. Since then, we've expanded to serve more than 2,500 children each year through our extended day, extended year schools, as well as our after-school and community-based programs. We now serve youth in East Harlem, the South Bronx, and Newark, New Jersey. Those of us who are parents don't need research to tell us that the rich experiences that we provide for our own children is what all children deserve. An excellent school, enriching after-school programs, mental and physical wellness, individualized supports, and most importantly, a network of caring and supportive adults. This is what every child deserves and what every child needs to be successful in college and in life beyond. This is what we work to provide for all of our students at DREAM. To accomplish these ambitious goals, how and why we do our work is just as important as what we do. That's where our maxims come in. The DREAM maxims amplify the values that have guided us since 1991 and will carry us into the future. All kids can, this kid can. DREAM is family. Fun is a serious value. Teamwork makes the dream work. Fail, persist, exceed, my current personal favorite, and dream big. These 6 maxims build on our mission, and they show us what it means to be a member of the DREAM community every day. The foundation of DREAM's model is a holistic approach and a desire to support our scholars in a fully degree manner needed for our youth to become active, engaged, and productive citizens. This means that we have a focus on academic success, of course, but it also means that we pay close attention to social-emotional learning, to family engagement, and to athletics, health, and wellness. This support is vital in any normal time. After all, right, it's impossible to focus on school if a child is sick, hungry, or stressed because of the circumstances beyond our own school walls. But it is especially vital in times of crisis. Because of our deep and long-standing relationships with families and the trust that we have already built with our families, we're well positioned to provide an array of frontline emergency support during this critical time. Our priority is to maintain a rigorous virtual academic program to keep students on track, but also, and maybe more importantly, to maintain the social support and the sense of community so vital to learning and connection. Beyond that, we understand that the families we serve are like so many other families across the country, facing dire financial circumstances brought on by unemployment and the plunging economy, which means that basic needs, food, shelter, healthcare, are urgent vulnerabilities. DREAM has a commitment to our scholars and families to step up and offer whatever support we can in the next days and months. As you can see here, and as you have probably read and can imagine, the pandemic has hit Black and Brown communities especially hard. It's been truly devastating. Dream is in one of the communities, some of the communities that are among the hardest hit. East Harlem and the South Bronx are two communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the virus, not least of which is because of inadequate access to healthcare, tight living conditions, and the many essential workers who are part of our community. This is the community where we do our work. Our families, like so many others, are facing food insecurity, housing insecurity, inadequate health insurance. And our model, this network, this web of support that we provide, enables us to come together and support scholars and families during crisis. And it's because of this web of support that we're able to continue learning and growing. There's no challenge big enough that could deter us from believing that all young people have unlimited potential and deserve to realize their dreams. But you should probably not just take our word for it. Just up next, we'd love to share with you one of our favorite videos where you'll get to hear directly from our 9th and 10th grade spoken word poets. And they will share with you in their own words what dream means to them.
Imagine there were no word for limit. Do you know how many of us would already be in the sky? Evolved past our feet and trusted a new part of our bodies to carry us. This is the dream. The one we make real here. This is the dream. This is the dream.
Little sister, you got it right. You got it right to be alive. I've come to tell you, you got it right. You got it right to be alive. Little children, you got it right. You got it right to be alive. I'm here to tell you, you got it right. You got it right to be alive. Everybody got it right. You got it right.
Our story is about persistence, about getting back up, carving a new path, letting love lead us and truth feed us. There is a place for us. We know it. We built it. There is a way for us. We know it. We walk it. We claim everything that was stolen or silenced. We claim our voice. We claim our bodies. We claim our education. We claim our community. We claim our potential. We claim our freedom. We claim our joy. We claim the protection that's kept us safe our whole lives.
Salute! Dragons, assemble!
This is our dream. This is our life.
You got a right to the tree of life. I'm here to tell you, you got a right. You got a right to the tree of life.
Call us significant. Call us righteous. Hungry for knowledge and deserving of it all. Call it our time. Our everlasting moment. Not to do what they said that we could not, but to do what we knew we could do all along. Will you stand by us? You who say that no child should be left behind. Share the world that was granted to us all. Promise to help us dream with our eyes open. This is the dream. Imagine there were no words for limit. Do you know how many of us would already be in the sky?
I love this video. I think in many ways it captures both the joy and the deep sense of possibility that is Dream. Highlights the best of our community and really captures what it looks like and feels like to be a part of the Dream community. I'm excited now to introduce Jared Francis, Dream's high school principal, Dream's founding high school principal. Jared's story is a really inspiring one, and over the past 3 years, Jared has led the incredible growth and development of Dream High School, which continues the strong traditions of our network begun in pre-kindergarten. Jared's going to share more about his team's approach to academic achievement and engagement as rooted in our whole child model, our maxims, and our values. Jared, take it away.
Thank you so much, Eve. And I'm really excited to be here today and share the work that we do here at Dream, the work we've been doing at our high school, seeing those faces that I don't get to see every day and those voices was a reminder for me of why we do this and what this work is about. So excited to talk about what it means to continue to do that kind of work and create that kind of experience for our young folks and our families in a time of challenge and a time of crises for educators at Dream and throughout the world. And in moments like this, it's really can be confusing to think about what the right thing to do is, what the right decisions to make are, what the right way to go is. And so we as educators really have to think about how we make those choices. And for us, it comes back to our values. And so the things that we've been dealing with and faced with at Dream are not unique to Dream. The questions are really common. What are the ways that we make learning work for our kids? We spent a lot of time in these first few weeks of remote learning thinking about that, thinking about what it would mean for a kid to learn if they had a family member that was sick, thinking about what it would mean if one of our families faced some kind of economic hardship. How are we going to show up for our kids? And so these are the questions that educators are dealing with. And we have found our answer to them by coming back to the maxim and to the values that Eve talked about. We constantly think about what the needs of our kids are. And when we have to think about how to meet those needs, we return back to who we are. And I want to lift up some of the maxims that have really helped guide us over these past few weeks. And the first one is this idea of all kids can. Dream serves a really diverse array of kids. We serve a larger share of special education students than our district does. Our kids come to us at all levels of academic preparedness, and that has never stopped us from having a high bar for what kids can achieve, because we know that if we give them the kind of support that they need, they will thrive and they are capable of being great, because that's what they are. And so that's what all kids can, this kid can has always meant to us inside of school. But it's really been important to us since we've been in this remote space to think about how we make all kids can and this kids can real. And so a few things that we've thought about, knowing that our kids are in a circumstance that they are entirely, we're not expecting. And so we've tried to think about, one, making sure that all of the learning that we do is really accessible. It doesn't matter if a kid wants to learn first thing in the morning or in the late afternoon. We have to make sure that our lessons, to make sure that all of our materials are accessible to all of our young folks. The second thing is to make an experience that's really modular. We want to actually give our kids choice. There are some opportunities that remote learning presents to us as we think about our kids getting ready to go to the college of their choice. And that's all about designing learning for yourself. And so we want that experience to be modular, and we want it to be accessible. And then finally, continue to make sure that we really support the wide range of young folks that we serve with multiple levels of support. So I want to take you into how we've made that look in our school. We've used platforms such as Near-Pod to really make our learning engaging and make it accessible. And so this is an example from a global history course. We haven't changed what our curricular goals are. The level of rigor is still there. We're still focused on making sure that our content is really relevant and culturally responsive to our young folks. So you see this is a lesson where kids are looking at the history of the DR. And so they're able to log online and they're able to start this lesson and be with their peers. But they're also able to access this on their own time if for some reason they're not able to log on. Let's talk about how Nearpod makes that work. So you'll see some examples here of a student discussion that took place during this class. Some of these posts are from young folks who were present during the live class, but other students were able to watch a video recording of the class and then share their thoughts with their peers. And so no student is able to be excluded or left out based on the circumstances that they might be in. And so we have some other examples of student writing here. And this is also a place where our teachers are still able to monitor our students as they learn. And we have now even new opportunities for our kids to demonstrate what they know. So it's not just through writing or joining a live class. We're doing discussions in a really different way too. Another tool we use is called FlipGrid. And this allows students to engage in a virtual DISM course where they're able to respond to each other's thinking. And so taking these kinds of steps allow all of our kids to be able to achieve, to show what they know, but also meets our young folks where they're at. We can use this as an opportunity to make sure that we still achieve educational equity. The line to getting to this place has not been an easy one. And I think this idea, Eve said this is her favorite maxim right now, and I might agree. It's the idea of fail, persist, succeed. And that's been true for us as a team, but also for our young folks. And so when we first started this, we weren't sure what remote learning should look like. We weren't sure what was going to work for our students or not. And so some things have helped us guide the way there. And it's been really listening to the voices of our young folks, making sure that the experience we offer them is personalized and focused on their individual needs, and always pushing them to dream big. The student voice piece is in particular been really key. Even before our doors closed, our young folks were in the habit of owning what their school was. We're a founding school, so our kids, have a strong voice in what the school becomes. This is an example of an email that I got from one of our students at the beginning of remote learning. I got a lot of stories of, it's too much work. I need more time with my teachers. What happens if I need to port? We met with our student government, who were very clear with me in this text message exchange, that the things that they're used to during school, having a clear routine, a structure, being able to get feedback on your work, were things that our students really needed and weren't getting from us in those first few weeks. And so we really listened to what our young folks said and made changes to the way we shared their work with them. We built more opportunities for them to get one-to-one support. I'm glad to say I got some different emails and texts after we made those changes there, because they do a good job of also letting us know when we make the right choice. And then there's another example of the SGA saying, great work, which is a pretty high praise from those folks. And then this idea of really personalizing things. What we've learned is that taking care of the whole child means that you really need to know our young folks. And so our kids have advisors, and our advisors make multiple one-to-one touch points with every kid in our school. And the kind of work they do ranges. There are some kids who need like a wake-up text. Hey, you got class. I hope to see you there. There are other kids, you have to help them get a schedule in place. There are times when a young person needs a pep talk, but our advisors really take the time to get to know who our kids are, to make sure that they're giving them the right kind of support. And then what we've seen is this has helped kids who might be having a hard time get back in the game because they know that there's an adult who knows them well and really wants them to succeed. This is a great example of this. This is a teacher sharing with the rest of her team the kind of progress that a student who's really struggled throughout this time, and she has been texting him every week, making sure that she is trying to motivate him. And then last week he got back in the game. He came to some online classes for the first time. He did his work in a way that he had not, and his GPA moved. And those are the kind of stories that have really helped our young folks be able to persist through this really challenging time. And so it's not just about being able to persist, it's about keeping that high bar and making sure that our young folks can dream big. So as we close out the year, we've started to think about what are some ways that our young folks can demonstrate how much they've learned and what they're capable of. This is an example of how in every course to close out this year, our kids are engaged in project-based experiences where they're going to get to show the skills that they've practiced and grown throughout the year, but get to demonstrate them in maybe ways we would not have thought about before. One of my favorite examples is from our 10th grade ELA class, where the kids are looking into who's responsible for the water crisis in Flint. And they're going to create a multimedia presentation that they publish on social media to say who they think is responsible for. That really speaks to what our mission is: kids developing their ability to read, write, and speak to make change for people who look and sound like them. And so we're really glad that we continue to have high expectations for our young folks, but also giving them the kind of support that they need. So I'm excited to turn it over to Mr. Matthew Beaton, who's one of our teachers, who is going to share what his experience has been like during remote learning.
Thank you, Jared, and thank you everyone for joining and giving me the opportunity to share my experience and the work we're doing at Dream Charter High School. As teachers, our entry point to this work, as Jared mentioned, is as advisors and personalizing this work. Keeping in mind how this is playing out nationally in the NPR survey displayed on a previous slide, we know that engaging with students and families is the most important part of our job. And we view relationships and community support as a springboard for getting students engaged in rigorous virtual academic work. So to share a little bit about my advisor role, I'm calling families weekly, sometimes daily, and I have near daily check-ins with students. There's some of my students I call at 9 o'clock every morning. We have a great sort of goal setting for the day. I share my goals, he shares his goals. There are some students for whom a longer weekly check-in works. So for each student, it's about seeing what works for them and gets them hooked into the work. During this time, we're not just telling them to do work, we're also asking them how they are, how they're processing all this, and learning what they're doing during this time. One of my advisees is repainting her room. Some are blazing through Netflix shows after work. And one of our students made a video to show teachers the hectic day in the life of what it is to be a student at Dream, so that teachers are a little more empathic to their work. So from these connections, from that personal work, we can make our moves as educators. And as Jared showed on these slides, we've modified our practices based on feedback and conversations with students. I also received some emails asking for more collaboration, discussion, and engagement. And from that, I've really tried, my co-teacher and I've tried to use FlipGrid and Nearpod as tools to foster communication beyond the walls of a classroom. Students have presented screencasts on how Rwanda was able to heal after the 1994 genocide as members of a Truth and Reconciliation Tribunal. Students have watched movies on apartheid and critiqued those movies based on historical knowledge and used FlipGrid as a platform to leave that review. So those forms of technology have been ways in which we've had our rigorous virtual learning, but in a way in which students are also building their voice as representatives using technology. And I really can't wait to see them carry these threads in the future. Similarly, our end-of-year projects are really about authentic assessments and encouraging real-life transfer opportunities. For history, we're really pushing students to solve enduring issues. An enduring issue we're seeing right now is, inequity playing out with crises, and they're presenting these to investors and policymakers. So to close, I just know for myself, being part of this effort has kept me together and upbeat during this time. And my interactions with my advising and students are the best part of my day. So I really can't wait to see them again. But until then, my connections with them are really keeping me going.
Thank you, Eve, Jared, and Matt. As a current parent, dream parent to a 5-year-old pre-K scholar, I can speak firsthand to the great lengths that our teachers go to keep our scholars engaged. In fact, I think my daughter is participating in a movie night as we speak. These times are tough and they're challenging, but it's only made slightly more manageable when you have a team or a family like Dream behind you and around you. So now we're at the point of our webinar where we'll have the opportunity to answer the questions that you have submitted. As I said earlier, we will do our best to answer as many as possible while being mindful about the time. I will direct the questions to one of our speakers as they come in so that they can share their insight. We already have one question in to get us started. And this question is, how does Dream incorporate SEL into our work? And is there a specific program that is used? I'm going to ask Eve to get us started with that.
Sure, something I love talking about. So SEL has long been a part of our work, actually starting back on our days when we had kids on the ball field and realized that our kids were learning as much, if not more, about their social emotional selves and competencies as they were about how to play baseball and softball. And we learned a lot over those years about what it takes to develop socially emotionally competent young people. Today, after testing and learning around a few different curricula, in elementary school, we use a curriculum that comes out of Yale's Center for Emotional Intelligence, which is called Ruler. And we also use an assessment tool that helps us benchmark and evaluate where, at the baseline level, where kids are starting on a set of competencies, so that we can really target the curriculum to the needs of students. The assessment that we use measures competencies such as academic self-efficacy, contribution, positive identity, self-management, social skills, and social capital. And we're able to benchmark at the beginning of the year and then get a mid-year benchmark on where our students are, and then an end of year. In our middle school, our social emotional curriculum is built around our advisory blocks. So one of the things we know about middle school children is that those strong relationships with adults, with the network of caring adults, is critically important to their development, as is the strong connection to team. And so what we've been able to do in our middle school is develop small advisory groups. Our advisories have no more than 8 students in them to 1 adult. Those groups stay together and they meet 3 times a week. And so in those 3 times a week meetings, students are engaging in an advisory curriculum that we built ourselves, but again, targeted around these core social emotional competencies that I just named. And Jared, maybe you could speak for a minute about what SEL instruction looks like in the high school.
Can you hear me? There's a couple of pieces to our SEL instruction in our high school. One is continuing to do the advisory-based work. So we do that in our homeroom. So kids are a part of restorative circles every day where they're able to share and build connections with their peers. But we also have a college prep course where kids get explicit SEL in instruction around academic habits, forming healthy relationships with your friends, and then in the upper grades, thinking about how your interest and how your personality influence the kind of colleges that you apply to. In addition to that, there's a big focus on our kids being a part of teams. That's really connected to our history at Dream. And so for some kids, that's sports, but a lot of our clubs are also team-based. So that is things like Model UN, things like the Debate Club, where kids get to practice forming bonds with peers, working towards goals, and being able to achieve things.
Great. We have another question about how we engage families at the high school. So I will kick that back to Jared.
Family engagement is a really big pillar of our work at Dream, and often at the high school, people will think family engagement is maybe less important there because the kids are bigger and they, can travel to school. But for us, it just means the engagement with families is different. And so it's not about, you don't get to meet them all at the door, but it's creating authentic opportunities to bring them in. So for example, a program that we do every year for our families is called Parenting Journey, where our families work with members of our staff to unpack their own experience as kids and think about how that influences them as they are parents now. It is tied into our college access work for when families start early in ninth grade, learning about what it means to partner and guide their kid through the college access process. And it's also opportunities very similar to Matt, where he was describing making those phone calls to his to his advisees' parents once a week. And so the engagement work is different than in our younger grades, but the importance is still there.
Thank you, Jared. We have another question about the future at Dream. 6 months from now, the summer, next year, and years to come, and I'm going to pass that to Eve.
That is a timely question. I wish, sometimes I'm looking for the crystal ball that's going to tell us all of this, but I can share a few things and a few pieces of work that we're engaged in right now and how we're thinking about the future. So first and foremost, we are committed to staying engaged with our students in one form or another from now through the summer into the fall. There will not be a time where we are not connected to students and families, and that's both part of who we are. We've run summer programs for our young people for decades, and we'll continue to do that. Unfortunately, we don't yet know if we'll be able to do that in person, but regardless, we'll provide opportunities for students to engage virtually in the core parts of programming that we do every summer, which are academic enrichment, social-emotional learning, and athletics and recreation. And so we'll find ways to do that even if it is virtual. And if there's a chance that we can get on some of our ball fields or out into our playground, even in smaller groups, we will jump at that chance. So that's first and foremost. As many of you may know, summer youth employment programming was cut completely out of the city budget, which means that for about 50,000 young people in New York City who expected to have some sort of a summer job, that's no longer an option for them. And for many of those young people, that job was not just an opportunity for learning for them, but it was a source of income for their families. So something we are deeply committed to is providing summer work opportunities for our young people in high school, whether that is through our own program. So our high school students do, a significant number of them work in our elementary school summer program. And even if that means they'll be coaching a team virtually, we will still have them do that work. And then we're engaging with a number of organizations to provide opportunities for internships, for other summer jobs, and then working to arrange continued learning opportunities through project-based learning and SAT prep through the summer for our high school kids. The sort of non-negotiable for us being that one way or another we'll stay connected to those kids. In terms of the fall and how we think about the return, I guess on a tactical level, we're engaged in planning right now for a fall return that could really range anywhere from continued virtual instruction to an in-person return, and about, you know, untold iterations in between those two ends. And that means that takes a lot of creativity and innovation on our team's part to think about what could it look like if a student is back in school every other day, you know, in a smaller group. If a student is primarily learning remotely but has once a week a touch point in person with a teacher. And so we're currently engaging in the planning for all of those scenarios. But one thing we know that we feel really strongly about, I think that's probably obvious from what you've heard from us today, is that the social emotional side of the work that we need to do when we return is going to be paramount. So there will be no coming back to school and regaining lost learning time if we don't first care for and heal our community. Right now, I think we can all agree that children, you know, adults, but especially children, are experiencing what we'd call a trauma. You know, something they never could have imagined would be part of their reality. And when we have the fortune to be back together in person, we're going to take time to really come together as a community to rebuild, to heal ourselves and each other as teams, and to focus on the social emotional health and wellness of our young people. And that foundation will allow us to continue closing the academic learning gaps, and moving forward as a community.
Thank you, Eve. I think we have time for one more question. And this question I'm going to ask for Matt or Jared to respond. And the question is, as a teacher, can I incorporate my own materials and lesson ideas in a classroom?
I think Matt should take that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have had a lot of autonomy in my 2 years at Dream to teach engaging curriculum that speaks to the lived experiences of our students. And I think we are encouraged to teach in a way that connects to our values. And I think having that autonomy to teach beyond just standards for the Regents, but teach to ways that empower our students to become critically conscious and powerfully literate is how I think about writing curriculum.
Great. Thank you. And I think we have time for one more. And this question is, how are we thinking about end-of-year celebrations and honoring the work of our students, staff, and families through these difficult times? So I could leave that to Eve or Jared to answer.
I'm happy to start, and Jared, please jump in. But I think, you know, I have to say, you know, we were maybe not surprised by this, but when we first closed, which was mid-March, I can't tell you the number of families who turned to us and said, but what about graduation? You know, what about our award ceremonies? Because those milestones are so meaningful, right, for kids and families. They mark something really important. And so we hear that they're important to us too, and we hear that feedback. And so recently we've been engaging with a few other peer networks to talk about what virtual ceremonies can look like. We do not expect that we'll be able to maintain those celebrations in person, but we do feel very strongly that celebrating and honoring our students is part of our culture and part of what sends the message of their value and their importance to us. And so the celebrations that we do end of year, which include a pre-K stepping up, a kindergarten stepping up ceremony, a 5th grade bridge to middle school ceremony, an 8th grade graduation ceremony, and many other award ceremonies, we will find ways to do virtually and to ensure are accessible to all of our families, most importantly, so they can participate and see their kids shine. Jared, I don't know if you have anything to add at the high school specifically.
No, you know, I think a fortunate thing is our first senior classes next year. So, you know, I think that's a silver lining for us. But in terms of our sophomores who do have a big culminating event, they're still going to have the opportunity to share their learning of what they did over their sophomore year, just again in a virtual space. But I also think that creates some opportunities for them to do it in ways that are similar to what they might do in their careers.
Thank you. And then there was one last question that I must answer that was asking, is Dream still hiring during the pandemic? And I want to say enthusiastically, yes, we are still hiring. We are always looking for the smartest, the brightest, and the most diverse group of people to join our community. So I will encourage anyone who's interested in learning more about us to check out our website or connect with us via social media. But yes, we are always hiring. So this, we're about to wrap up, and I just want to say thank you for joining us. This time is unprecedented in so many ways. Scholars and families and staff are being challenged and pushed in ways that 3 months ago would have been unimaginable. And I personally think Dream is a really special place. We're rooted in this belief that we do our best work together as a team, as one team. And that sense of teamwork and of connectedness, even though we're apart, has never rung more true than it does now. I love Dream. This was my first job out of college 17 years ago. I left to pursue other opportunities before ultimately deciding that Dream was where I needed to be. It's where I belonged. So I came back 7 years ago, and I'm so thankful and appreciative and grateful to call this place home. So thank you for being with us, for learning about who we are, what drives us, and what motivates us, and how we work with our scholars. And like I said earlier, we'd love to stay connected, so please keep in touch by checking out our website or following us on social media. Thank you, everyone.